Hey everyone, Nick Yuskevich here again with Daily Fantasy Winners. We've got the next edition of Tee to Green here for you. And this week is the Arnold Palmer Invitational located in Orlando, Florida. And this is going to be a pretty strong field this year. And it's usually a decent field. However, I think it'll be particularly strong this year because last year, unfortunately, it was a little bit on the weaker side, just because of the chaotic schedule that was kind of thrown upon the players a little bit with the Olympics happening last year, and it kind of caused some of the other events to be moved around, and like some of the WGCs and things of that nature. And so it just kind of starting around this time of year, it kind of forced some players to make some choices around like, okay, how do we balance out our schedule and preparing for the major championships while, still leaving the door open for the Olympics and everything like that, when players were, a lot of the top players were still kind of like had their eyes set on doing that, and just kind of made for a chaotic schedule. And just so anyways, not that it was a terrible field last year, but in any case, I do, as we see this year, it is a pretty strong field this year, and one of the strongest I can remember over the last handful of years, because of that, and obviously, of course, because of unfortunately of Arnold's passing away last year. And so obviously I think a lot of people will be making an appearance there to pay tribute to him and everything like that. And so in any case, so good news for golf fans, just because we get to see a strong field this week. And so as far as the field size, though, there's only 120 players in this field. So usually there's about 140 to 150 players in a typical PGA Tour event. So we have about 20 to 30 fewer players this week, which means it's easier for us to have lineups that have all six guys make the cut. And also with this being a strong field and this new, shouldn't even be calling it a new salary structure anymore, but with this different salary structure that we're playing with in 2017, better way to put it. There's a lot of value in the 6 to 7K range this week. So it is definitely going to be an easier week, in my opinion, to have all six guys make the cut. So instead of, somewhere around 5% of GPP lineups having everyone make the cut, it's going to be over 10%, maybe like 15%, something like that. We'll see exactly how many it is when the time comes. And so what do you need to know about the golf course? This is located at Bay Hill Golf Club. It's been played there, I believe, every year since the tournament was founded several years ago. I think it was like 50 years ago. I don't know exactly. But anyways, it's been there for a long time. It is a par 72 that tips out at 7,381 yards. I've seen a couple different distances out there, depending where you look. But anyway, it's about 7,400. We'll just call it that. But it's a par 72, so it's not the longest course in the world. It's actually middle of the road, honestly, for a par 72, especially since there's not much elevation involved, and because it's a Florida course, of course. And we've got 4 par 5s as resulting a par 72. So for the 4 par 5s, the first 3 of them, you will need to be a longer hitter to record an eagle on. And then the last hole, which is number 16, or the last hole that is a par 5, which is hole 16, that is a hole where pretty much anybody of all driving distances will be able to make an eagle on. And so, but the one thing you should know about that, though, is similar situation here with the longer hitters. It kind of happened when I was talking about this at Kapalua a little bit, but hole 16 is a hole that will give up usually about anywhere between 25 to 30 eagles alone. And I already looked at the weather down in Florida this week in Orlando, and it's supposed to be just perfect, like 5 to 10 mile an hour winds, like at the most, like all week, maybe like 10 to 15 on Sunday, but that's still not that much. It's basically say and especially since it's kind of an easier course a little bit when it comes to scoring average when you have non-windy conditions, I'm going to guess we'll see at least 30 eagles on that hole this week, especially with the driving, with some of the bombers, here this week as well. And so we're going to see a lot of eagles there. But if you take a look at the other 3 holes, that are par 5s, we only usually see about 15 eagles or so between those 3 holes combined. So we're going to get about twice as many eagles on that one hole where any distance hitter can make an eagle as opposed to the other 3. So it's just basically to say that, yes, being a longer hitter helps because, you're going to have more opportunities probably for eagle, and being a longer hitter helps a little bit on the shorter par 5 anyways, on number 16, just a little bit. But just to say, it's by no means required, again, to have a longer hitter to make eagles on this course. Other thing you need to know about this golf course, obviously down in Orlando, this isn't kind of your typical Florida golf course. It's flat and everything like that. But the one thing that should be noted is, while some of their signature holes does have water on it, there are actually only 8 golf holes on the course that have water come into play on it. And so, sometimes I think, everyone just automatically assumes there's water on like nearly every hole at every Florida course. That's not the case here. There's only about 8 of the holes where it comes into play. It does come in very easily on those 8 holes, or at least 7 of the 8, I should say, but nevertheless, it's not on every hole. And so it won't be like what we saw at the Honda, and it won't be like what we see at Sawgrass, about 2 months from now or so. So how does this come in from a strategy standpoint? So we'll move on into the strategy portion here. This is still a tee to green golf course, but because I said there's not as much penalty stroke avoidance, off the tee here, driving accuracy and strokes gained off the tee not quite as important as you would normally see on a Florida golf course. But it's still definitely a strokes gained tee to green course, strokes gained approaching the green golf course. Both of those definitely show up. Both of those are fine to use. And then, as I mentioned before, the longer hitters are beneficial, but they're by no means required. It's essentially, just to say this from making your lineup in a strategy standpoint, I would not have 6 shorter hitters because that is going to limit your potential in your lineups. And this is from a GPP perspective especially, but it's still both. I wouldn't do that. But at the same time, you by no means have to have all bombers as well. I would just make sure you at least have maybe like a couple in your lineups, or longer hitters, like above average, type of thing. You can have average length hitters. That's still fine, because there is a difference, between, whether you have somebody that averages 290 off the tee or 300, that's not that big of a deal. Like, it's more when you get down to that 270, 275 range where you can run into trouble on a couple of these par 5s. And it's important to know also, actually, just for that 16th hole, which is the shorter par 5, there is a creek that runs in front of the green. Most people will still go for 2 anyways, but if someone hits a bit of an errant tee shot and, they're in the rough and they catch, kind of a bad lie, and it's kind of a tough pin placement, it might keep some of the shorter hitters away from going for it, and fewer going for the green opportunities. So it still helps to have a little bit of a few distance hitters in your lineup. Okay, outside of that, again, good Florida players as usual. I always just mention that anytime there's a tournament in Florida, just because that correlates a little bit more than normal. Not quite as much for Bay Hill, just because of the water thing I mentioned, but still, it does come up here. Of course, recent form as usual. Cash game strategy, just follow all the things I just listed, and then of course follow the typical odds per dollar. There's still same salary structure we've been having over the last couple of months, so you can take a look at that. It is updated on the website. At the odds per dollar tab, and then a GPP, same deal here. The usual list will be posted on DailyFantasyWinners.com in the forum, along with my favorite picks in there as well, including a couple of my top picks in this video, which I will get to right now. So again, I like to give my 2 favorite expensive plays on here. As far as the guys that are above 10K, I'm going with Jason Day this week, and he's $10,600. And you take a look at the other guys that are around him: Rory McIlroy at 12K, Henrik Stenson 11.5, and Hideki Matsuyama at 10.3. And really, all 3 golfers, I guess in one way or another, they're all playing fantastic golf right now, and I think all 3 of them are going to be a little bit more popular choices than Jason, even though, despite that Jason is the defending champion here. And I just say that because I don't want to say there's negativity around Jason Day, but it seems like anytime Jason Day is brought up here, this year, it's been all kind of, it's still, again, it's been brought up with he had the double ear infection and he didn't play at the WGC in Mexico a few weeks ago, and he didn't win he hasn't won a tournament yet, even though he's played on a couple of those tournaments. He played 63 holes of really good golf. He just had one bad hole stretch on one of those 9 holes in each of those rounds, basically, that kind of took him out of it a little bit and still gave him, I think it was, let me double check here just so I'm telling you something accurate. He, T5 at Pebble, and then, actually, not the Genesis. So he actually had he missed, that's right. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. At the Farmers, he hit the ball beautifully all week, or all Thursday and Friday. He just literally putted atrociously, but Jason Day's one of the best putters on tour. And that's when the Poana grass usually kind of flowers in the afternoon. The ball bounces all over the place. And I just don't, putting is where there's going to be variance, and I just do not did not expect that to happen to Jason again. At Pebble, he played perfectly for 63 holes, and then he just had one bad 9-hole stretch on Saturday's round. And honestly, I just don't think he's in bad form. And we've obviously seen Jason to be very good at Florida courses. He won twice at Florida courses last year, once at Bay Hill, and then the other at Sawgrass, because he was just ripping 2-iron again, like I said, 300 yards down the pipe. Don't know if he'll need the 2-iron this week, but it's just to say that he can win golf tournaments in multiple ways. And just from an ownership standpoint also, I know he's 10.6, and you look at Matsuyama, who's 10.3, and then obviously near his price point, who will, I think, be a little bit more popular than Jason. And then you take a look at Henrik and Rory at 11.5 and 12K. Even though they're a little bit more expensive, at the same time, it is really easy to make lineups this week, and I have a good feeling that people are going to feel a lot more comfortable rostering Rory and Stenson right now, and just because, and they still feel like they can make really good lineups, that Jason's ownership really won't be that great. It was I don't remember exactly. I think it was at Pebble Beach, if I'm not mistaken. I should have double checked this, but in one of these tournaments, Day was in recently, his ownership was only 10% around this price point, and it was just laughable. And so I think you could be getting great value here just in GPPs, and it's weird to say Jason Day with great value, but I think you are in GPPs, and I think he's fine in cash formats too. Yeah, he might be slightly more risky, but I really wouldn't worry about it too much at all here, because even if Day is inaccurate, having a bad stretch of holes inaccurately off the tee, this course will not penalize you as much as a normal Florida course, and even on the holes where there is water, there's usually easy bailouts to the other side, and that's why driving accuracy isn't as important here. Okay, anyways, said enough about Jason. As far as the 9K range goes, I really like this 9K range, but I do like Justin Rose the most. Justin has been playing absolutely... he's been playing really good golf. He has 3 top 5s this year already. He had one at the Sony, slightly weaker field, but then he had a T4 at the Farmers and a T4 at the Genesis Open, 2 very strong fields. Rose has also played well. He played well in this tournament here last year, I believe, and he's played really well in Florida tournaments before. And so, and again, this is also a course where like, you know, stroke skiing putting doesn't come even into play like that much here. And so, and you know, Rose, sometimes the one knack on him is his putting, and we've seen bad putters do well here just fine here over the years, and so I wouldn't really worry about that too much with him, and Rose is just in good form, so no reason to not like Rose this weekend. Rose's ownership has finally started creeping up a tiny bit more, which is kind of about time, but it's still not probably where it should be. Like Rose at 10, I still think Rose is better than a 9.5K golfer. I think he's more, he maybe not shouldn't be Hideki's price, but he should be pretty much right there. I think that Rose's price is a little bit short there, and should at least be at where Fowler's at, which I believe is at 9,000 and 9,900. Yeah, Rose should be about 10K in my opinion here. So a little value there, and I don't think his ownership will be that terrible just because he's got Ricky and Oosthuizen right there. Snedeker's had a good year, a little bit cheaper than him, and obviously all the other good value a little below him. And so, anyways, that's it for this week. Schedule coming up this week. Let's start with this week. I might be traveling on Wednesday. And so therefore, my availability on Wednesday may not be as good as it normally is, whether it be Twitter, on the forum. Will be a little bit probably earlier in the day if it happens. But that's kind of to be determined still as at this point. But I will still get up the list for everybody on DailyFantasyWinners.com. So I'll probably do more of that actually work on Tuesday because I'm recording this on a Monday night. And so I just don't know how exactly great my availability will be Wednesday, kind of Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night. But we'll see as we get into that. Next week, we have the WGC match play, which means there is no DraftKings tournament as far as that tournament goes. However, there's the PGA Tour tournament that goes on. I think it's the Puerto Rico Open. Don't hold me to that. I should have looked that up before I got on here. But it is one of the PGA Tour tournaments that's not a WGC event that the PGA Tour sometimes puts on for the players that aren't in the top, not in the top 50, or I guess in this case the top 64 of the official World Golf rankings. And so I'll just say this right now. I'm not doing a Tee to Green episode for that. I can give you some general thoughts. I can give you course history stats. That takes me like 2 seconds to do as far far as putting that up on the forum, but I will not be doing a Tee to Green episode on that next week. I just have several other obligations to do, to attend to. I actually have a couple things I'm doing is related to the WGC match play that has nothing to do with DFS. And so if anybody wants to talk, the WGC match play with me on Twitter and the forum, I am more than happy to do that. I always love talking about the WGC. It's easily my favorite event that's not a major or the Ryder Cup, President's Cup, type of deal. But so we could do that a little bit, but got some other obligations I got to attend to with that. And also, by the way, I'll just be honest, and I just don't know much about the tournaments that go on, when they're not the WGCs. And a lot of the stuff I do is, it's data driven, which is easy, which you can look up, but there's a lot of stuff I do as far as course knowledge and whether I've been there, I know someone been there, and also just studying the golf course, which is kind of still one of the more things that aren't quite as done, I don't think, as much. And so in any case, honestly, it's just whatever information you're going to get out there elsewhere on that tournament next week. I think it's the Puerto Rico Open. That information will be as good, if not better, than what I could give you for that next week. I'll just be honest, and I'd rather give you good content than just content for the sake of making sure I give it to you every week. So rather just tell you that straight up. And so in any case, thank you again for watching. You can follow me at Nick Yuskevich on Twitter. The Daily Fantasy Winners is at DFantasyWinners on Twitter, and then likes and subscriptions. You guys know the drill. All right, good luck, everyone.